Let's go ahead and let's just pray and for the word to really just penetrate our hearts. So, Father, we thank you for your word. We're believing for it to penetrate our hearts, to change our lives, and God, and we're just believing that Lord, what we learned here today isn't just going to be something that's stuck on a Sunday, but God, something that we can apply to our lives Monday all the way through the next week. And so, God, we're just asking for you to bring conviction, teaching, encouragement, correction, Father, whatever is necessary. We trust you. We believe that you're eternally good. And everybody said, Amen. Well, I didn't I left off kind of on Luke 15 last week, with the whole idea of the prodigal son. And I really want to go ahead and do that again. I want to go ahead and start in Luke 15, and really pull some things out. I had the full intention of just being in the book of First John. I just kind of this morning began to just dwell upon, I left off here, and I began to kind of connect some dots. And so here we are. We'll see how this goes. But the parable of the lost son, or is the one I like to call, as you know, the parable of the misunderstood father, is simply, Father's Day. I guess that works. There's your Father's Day message. How many fathers ever felt misunderstood before by their own kids? Never, right? That's never happened. Our kids have always understood who we were and understood what we meant and what we were saying. No. But we have two sons, and I don't want to go ahead and read the parable to you, but I do want to grab some things and bring them out for you. First thing, we have that first son. We know him. He's the entitled son. He thinks he deserves, he has a right to the things that he has. He has a right to the inheritance that technically he doesn't. But how many of us, we know we live in a society that is very entitled? We think we deserve all of this. And if you live in America, you are richer than over 80% of the world's population, believe it or not. And that is just simply by having running water, shelter, and knowing where your next meal is coming from, a bed to sleep in, and and not even air conditioning, just heat in the winter. If you have that, you are already richer than over 80% of the world. Now, that is very interesting, and we always think ourselves as poor. And so when we hear things like it's hard for a rich man to enter heaven, do not ever discount yourself. But anyways, this man, of course, the son is very entitled, and he says, "I want what's mine, and give it to me, and give it to me now." And the way he requests of it, we dove deep last time when we ever visited this, was the specific request he makes basically is, "You're dead to me, Dad. Just give me what is owed to me from you." This was not a common way for Jews to ask of the inheritance. There were ways you could, just to go really quickly. There's one where you could say, "Hey, Father, I want my inheritance, but it's still yours, but I want to have the ability to invest with your advisement. I want to learn while you are alive how to use it well." And the father never had to say yes, but that was a very common way that some sons or some children would ask for their inheritance early so they could learn and not screw it up when they actually get it. They'll have more confidence. And so others would just say, "I want to try it. Can I have my inheritance? I'll still be in your household, and you can take it back out of my possession at any time you want." This was also a little less normal, but still normal. But the way this son asks for basically says, "It's mine, and it's mine only." And the way only way that is possible is to basically say that the son believes, basically saying that you're dead. And the language is in there. This is why the father even says later, "My son was dead, but now he is alive." When the son would do such a dishonorable thing to his father, they would actually sometimes in that culture hold a funeral for the son, saying he's dead. And the son would never get welcomed back in. If you came back, you were dead to them. You were dead. You spat on your family name. You turned your back on them. It was all about you. You showed the greatest degree of hate you could towards people. You treated them like they were nothing, like they were scum, and you were like you were everything. You were God's gift to humanity. And so to do that, they would never let you back in. This is the kind of way that the son was doing this. And this is the way that we all can relate to it as a sinner. Most people before Christ believe they are entitled to live their life how they want. And in some degree, they're right. God has given you free will to do what you want. Unfortunately, most people take what God gives, which is free will and the things of this life, and they use it how they want. I think Daniel hit the nail on the head there. 10% to God, 90% self. That is not the right approach. It is like, give to God, and then the rest of it, you're still to be a good steward of everything in your life. I know that my wife belongs to God more than she belongs to me and my kids and so forth. And I don't want to fail my family. And I certainly don't want to fail God. And so I am trying to be the best steward of my time, of my resources, of all things. And so like I could go this way, but I better not. We're staying here. All right. But anyways, so the son has his issues. Of course, he falls on some really hard times. He is starving to death. If something doesn't change real soon, he is going to die. He knows this. I am going to die. And he comes to his senses. Notice it says to his senses. And this is what he comes to. It says here in verse 17 of Luke 15, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food? And I'm dying of hunger here. I'll get up, go to my father, and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. This is true. He would have no right to, it would be stupid to demand to be called back into his sonship. They're like, I can come back. Once a son, always a son. We can see that in our culture, and I don't have an issue with that. But you must understand that most cultures, it does not work that way. To abandon such a place as that in such a degree that he did, that is saying, I never want to come back. Even if I do not let me back in. As it is, like, no, this is a very extreme thing. And so he's like, I can't come back. So he's like, well, I'll try to come back. Like, maybe he'll accept me. Maybe he'll accept me as a servant or a slave. But notice that he recognizes something about his father. He recognizes that even those who are not sons and daughters, who are not his children, just workers, have more than enough. He blesses them with more than enough. He gives them way more. It's an abundance. So he's like, wait, my father is good and generous to them. Man, if I could just live under that little bit of generosity, that'll be more than enough. I don't even need to be a son to survive. I just need this. And I wonder how many Christians live that way. Understanding that you are sons and daughters, and you do have a greater level of living that you get to live by, and it should look that way. This is why Christians should be joyful. I know we go through things, but you ever see people go through things, and you ever see a Christian go through things, then compare them like non-Christians and Christians, and sometimes they look so similar. And it shouldn't look similar. You know, being Father's Day, I know I've mentioned this, but my father was shot 6 years ago. He's dead. And I'm in a healthy place because of what God has done in my life. But the thing is, like we have people like they go through such things. And I remember going through it. I cried. I still miss my dad to this day. I love my dad. He's dead. I still love him. There's an eternal love for him that I will always have for my dad. But the thing is I walked through it differently than others. And it's not because I'm something special, like, oh, I'm a pastor, I better, or I'm a Christian, I better. It's like, no, I'm a Christian. And so I'm walking this way because I'm like, that's the only way I see how to walk. This is what makes sense. This is what is in me. I'm not forcing joy out. I'm not forcing hope out. I'm not forcing comfort out. I'm actually going, like, when this is going on, I'm crying, yes, but then I'm going, oh my gosh, like, I wonder how my brothers and my sisters doing. I wonder if everyone's okay. I wonder how the family's doing. Like, my concern turned instantly from me to them, of going and praying for them, like outward, just boom, like that. How many people do that? Like, well, he was your dad. That's close. Like, you should be the one getting asked those questions. I go, whether I should or shouldn't be, I don't really care. It's not beside the point. But the question is what should I be doing as a believer? I should be living differently because I don't just have this little bit of understanding that the son does. I have a greater understanding. You see, again, notice he just has this little understanding of the Father, of his goodness, but he never comprehended the actual love of God. This is what the story is about, the actual love of God. So he goes and we read it, and it says, while he was a far way off, his father saw him, filled with compassion, ran, threw his arms around him, and gave him a kiss. And then, of course, he gives his speech, the son does, and the father says, quick, bring out the best robe, put it on him, the ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, bring out the calf, let's slaughter it and celebrate, because this son of mine was dead and is alive. You see, the father declares him alive. You don't get to declare yourself alive. And he was lost, but now he is found. so they began to celebrate. The son did not see this coming. Nobody who has ever walked into salvation understands the full picture of salvation. How many of you can say, no, I did? A single person in this room can raise their hand. That's not possible. Even to this day, we're like, I'm pretty sure I'm just at the tip of the iceberg of the beauty of this salvation. I think before we realize when we get there. But the thing is he did not know his father. And that is my cry to you. Do you have that desire to know him well? See, I can't help but think of Isaiah 44:22. If you want to turn there, I'll turn there. Oh, that worked out really well. No marker there. I love how that just happens to me a lot up here. It's pretty fun. But Isaiah 44:22. Listen to what God says. This is it. This is the Lord speaking. And it says, I have swept away your transgressions like a cloud, and your sins like the mist. Return to me, for I have redeemed you. Who's redeemed who? Who did the work? Who made it go away? Who made the problems disappear, the sin disappear? It was God. You didn't do a thing. Who let the son back in? Who called him worthy? Who made him alive? Who said he's found? The Father. The Father could have said, you're still lost, buddy, because this ain't home to you anymore. Remember what you did? If you wasted my stuff, fine. That's on you. Go figure it out. Good luck, whoever you are, because you certainly are no son of mine. That is exactly the response you should have gotten in a way that seems right to a man. But notice that this I love this analogy of the cloud. It is a fitting analogy. Why is it a fitting analogy? Because when the idea of a cloud here, you'll find it actually means it's dark. It's a dark cloud. Isn't that what sin does, though? There's this beautiful sun. How many of us love the sun? You don't? You better start. You'd be dead without the sun. Okay, so start loving it. Without the sun, we'd all be dead. No heat, no life, no water, no nothing. It would all die. It would just be dead. So be happy about it. Maybe you're like, I'm a night person. That's cool, but be glad the sun's still there even at night. Just not visible. But anyways, it is fitting because it does. What a cloud does is a dark cloud will cover the sun. I'm going to put a marker back. This cloud covers the sun. That is exactly what sin does. It comes in between us and God. Here we are. Here's God. Here's the cloud. All of a sudden, we don't have this clear picture of who God is. All of a sudden, we feel separated. And you ever screw up before and feel separated? Can I even go to God? Can I even do this? Am I even allowed to, I did this horrible thing, and will God even forgive me? I wonder if I'm even saved. You see what sin does? It puts this obscurity, and that's what the mist is. It's like a fog. Everything that seemed so clear before is no longer clear. The goodness of God is no longer clear. The forgiveness of God becomes very unclear. If you let it linger long enough, things like that, all of a sudden you're doing this, just trying to believe, struggling to believe. Why? Because the outline is fading. The details are gone. You are forgetting them. But when it is taken away, not a single person in this room can say they have better night vision than they do in the light. You may be able to see better than others at night, but you certainly cannot see better at night than you can during the day. More details. If I go ahead and turn out all the lights in this room, and we just make it all like really, really dark in here, but we just let a little bit of light in, and you didn't know the color of my shirt and it was dark, you would have to guess at it. But in the light, if you're not colorblind, it's pretty easy to tell what my shirt color is. It's blue. It's not hard. And that is exactly what God does when he removes the sin out of your life. He goes ahead and he takes it. He goes, I'm going to clear all things up. I'm going to make truth be truth. And let's face it, the world needs a whole lot of truth right now because it is coming up with its own truth and declaring it, saying, your truth is your truth, but my truth is this truth. And that is stupid. There is no such thing as your truth and my truth. There is only truth. We both can't be right, but we can both definitely be wrong. Jesus declares that in John 14, I am the way, the truth, the life. By saying it, he excludes every other way except for one way, himself. He either says, I am the only way, or I am no way at all. I am the only way, and they're all wrong, or, one of them can be right, but that would make me wrong. It's a very bold statement, but God does this to clear all things up. He makes it simple, going, you don't have to look anywhere else. All you got to do is look to me. All you got to do is keep your eyes on me. Hebrews 12, right? Fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. You see, if we would just go ahead and begin to confess our sin and give it up to God and walk in this holiness and strive for it in the fear of the Lord, which is another subject in itself, all of a sudden the road signs would become clear. And we would see not these little green ones that you're seeing on these street corners going, what road is that? Because even if you have good vision, you're still going, they put it in a dumb spot. You're not even really sure things are in the way, or you got to, it's not angled right. I feel like there should be a better way to do that. But they would be these massive signs, and one would be illuminated. This way is the righteous way. This way to heaven. It's like, boom, if you want to go to heaven, go this way. If you want to go to hell, go this way. And it would just make it like, hell, like heaven, hell, 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 hell. Like, man, there were like 50 choices. I didn't know which one to pick. Exactly. There's a million choices in the world. And there will be many that seem good, but there's only one that is truly good. There may be many that seem right, but there's only one that is right. And the only way you're going to get is you get it all clear. You get that vision, and you need God to wipe it out. And that is what the Father did for that Son. He is so blinded by what he did, the wrong, and his circumstances are overwhelming him, and he is just fed up with life. He can't do life. He is overwhelmed on every side. And so he just goes, I'm going to try. And he comes up so short of who his Father is. But the Father does not go and say, well, since you couldn't figure out who I am, you know what? I'll meet you where you are. You will become my slave. Darn right you will. You're lucky I let that happen. And he could do that, but he just goes, no, I won't meet you where you are. I won't meet you where the expectations of society is. He goes, I'm still going to be who I am. I am God. I am Father. And he just stays true, and he reveals his love. And the Son does not speak from this once the Father opens his mouth. He sits back and he observes. And probably for the first time in his life, actually learns a little bit about his Father. And can I just say about Christians today, stop being so busy. Life is full of things to do. But I would encourage you not to be full of things to do. Always be one who strives to run to him. There's a difference between those who know God. If you want to know the difference between those who know God well and those who have knowledge of God to some degree, I've learned it. I've heard it from others. They said there are those who are always on to the next thing. And then there are those always trying to go ahead and simplify and remove things from their life so they can get back to him. Their goal is always magnetized. They're always magnetically going this way. I want to come back to know God. I want time with God. I want time to sit down and think, not be like, well, I can get this done today, this done today, this done today. No, wait, be productive. Don't, by any means, don't be productive. Please do so. But there's a time and a place to draw from that and go, all right, I've done enough. I need this now. Because everything hinges on that. Because if we go back to our story in Luke chapter 15, we have a second son. And he is angry that he got accepted, his brother, this is it, his brother got accepted back. And can I just be honest? That's how we are in the world. That is how we are in churches, but that's how we are in the world, not just in churches, everywhere. We think justice is getting what you deserve in the way I think it's deserved. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a time and place for justice, and God will always execute true justice. In a way that is just, if we were to say that, if there were no mercy or compassion, yes, you should not be let back in. Well, then why did you say it was why you said just and unjust? I'm confused. No, the Father was just in allowing that son back in. You're like, how? Simply as this, you notice that no cost was asked for. He did not demand to know what he had done. He did not need to go ahead and give a listed account of his apology, even though he gave some kind of an apology. But notice what is done. There is an animal killed, there is a celebration, and he is treated like royalty freely. That means, to us today, that to them it was hidden, but today that means, guess what? The offense was put elsewhere. And we know today that the offense is placed upon Jesus Christ. It was placed on the cross. Last week we talked about that in our communion time. Remember that? We were in the story of Joseph. We had the baker and the cupbearer, and the cupbearer gets restored to his position, but the baker gets his head taken off. He gets killed. How did Jesus take sin upon his flesh? And it didn't get, he went on the cross with him. It didn't, sin was left on the cross. But the blood of Jesus restores us to the king's side. And it is by the word of Jesus Christ, through the blood that speaks better things, we are restored to the king's side. But in the flesh, sin has been condemned. That's why the baker was killed, but the cupbearer lived. But so today we know that God is just. He simply just places our punishment elsewhere. Now, that doesn't mean you can go ahead and do what you want. That just simply means that you have an amazing God. But here in this lies the problem. A son who goes ahead and will not love his brother is the problem. In verse 31, you find the father pleading with him after he says, I won't go in and celebrate this son of yours. So he disowns his brother by saying that, doesn't call him his brother. He says, son, and then the father said, son, you have always been with me, and everything I have is yours. Did you hear that? Everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost, but now is found. He is basically saying, you don't know my heart either, but here's my heart. He lays it out for the older brother as well. Whether he's, I guess, they don't really specify. Oh yeah, it does. So he lays it out saying, this is my heart. This is what we have to do. And why do we have to? He's like, no, according to law, this is what we have to do. But he's like, no, according to my heart, according to my desire, this is what we have to do. And so you can go according to the world in so many other ways, or you can go according to the heart of God. But the problem with the son is he doesn't know the heart of God. This one here doesn't know the heart of his father. He has an intellectual understanding that he has observed with his father. He forces fruit in the sense of works out, saying, this is what my father will be pleased in if I stay obedient. And yes, obedience is so important, but it needs to be on the right end. Obedience is the byproduct of someone who is in love with God. My sons, I don't want them to obey simply because I'm forcing them, or they feel like they have to obey. I want them to obey because they love me. And if I want something done that's not sinful, of course, and it's reasonable, I would like to say, like, they would have that heart going, man, I love my dad, and I really want to please dad because I love my dad, and so I'm going to go ahead and do this thing. That's what I want. I want them to understand me. But here we do not seem to have that. The vastness of the love of the Father is not found in the heart or the mind of this Son, neither of them really. He doesn't know, nor has he sought to know. Can I just say that there are those in church today, they are so intellectually smart. They have so much theological understanding, and yet they don't seem to know. And they will equate it and probably say, well, if I know the word, I know him. No, you know the word. We say the word is life, the word is God. And in the beginning was the word. I understand two are one, but if you don't got the heart of God through this by the guidance of the Spirit, you're missing out on the Son. And you're just seeing what the Pharisees saw, the letter of the law, not the heart of the law. You're missing out on the depths. And isn't that what we have in 1 Corinthians chapter 2? We have this person who's on our side. But listen in verse 9 of 1 Corinthians chapter 2. But as it is written, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no human heart has conceived the things God has prepared for those who love him. Now listen to this, though. Now God has revealed these things to us by the Spirit. At one time they were unknown, this idea of salvation, but now they can be known, but it's by the Spirit. And why by the Spirit? Since the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God. Now I have to ask this question. I have a few I wrote down when I've read this before. And I go, how comfortable can we be merely knowing doctrinal truths rather than the deep things of God. That's a shocking statement to myself. How satisfied can I be just having knowledge? But I have to ask the question to this then. This is the question I give. This is, do you long for the depths of God to be laid bare before you, that you may know him more? So that you would be like Moses, who ascended to the top of the mountain and began to see the glory of God, and to the point where his face shone like the glory of God? Or are you like those at the bottom of the hill when the glory of God is shown? You beg for people like that, you to hide their face. You tell them, you try to smother out the very glory of God in the lives of others by saying things like, no, that can't be right, brother. You're wrong. No, you can't live like that's not even possible. No, you need to tone that down. No one has that. No way. You can't have it, that, and they just keep reasoning, or they'll even do this. They won't say anything. They'll keep them really at a distance. They never really talk to them. Why? Because they're like, I'm uncomfortable around them. Are you content with the veil still being there? Or are you having such a passion to say, God, I want to know you more. I got to know you more. There's got to be more. You're an amazing God. You see, we have problems in life, right? We have all these problems, but you know what? And everyone seeks to go ahead and find a solution for the problem rather than seek the one who has the solution. One of my life verses is totally probably weird for some people, but it literally is the last statement Jesus makes on the cross. And says, when he said, "It is finished." I truly believe the work of God was complete in Christ. I trust wholly upon Christ. I throw all of my chips in. If I were playing a bet, I would shove them to the middle of the table and bet them all on Christ, saying, I know he's going to have the answer every single time. He's my answer every single time. And if I can just get a glimpse of him in this moment and what he would do in my situation, how he would love, how he would care, how he would forgive, how he would carry this thing out, I guarantee you I would walk out unscathed and even blessing those who hate me. And I wouldn't be bothered by it. I don't care if my wife was the enemy of my household and wanted a divorce. I could love her if I could go like Jesus, because isn't that what he said? Love your enemies. What if they're of your own household? So all of a sudden, no, they should be my family. They should love me. No, love them anyways. The Spirit of God is in you. So let him, like, God, show me how you want to love this person, because they're acting out in a way that is contrary, which shows me they don't have you. But if they had you, they wouldn't be doing that. And so let my life be an example of that. And I'm not saying it's going to solve it. In fact, I would even say sometimes it might make it worse. Like, this is not very comforting. I'm not here to comfort you. That's the Spirit's job. Although I do think there's some sort of comfort in this, knowing that, you know what, even if you try your best, if somebody doesn't follow suit in the sense of you expected to reconcile and change and become a Christian or whatever it may be, and they don't, the comfort is this: you didn't fail. I've talked to people whose marriages have ended in divorce. Like, I failed. I go, did you love them to the end, to the best of your ability? Did you seek to love them like Christ loved? And they go, yes. I go, then you didn't fail. They still have to choose. You can't do that for them. If that is the case, then Christ failed, because 100% of the world doesn't choose him. And everyone will look at you wide-eyed. How dare you even let that come from your mouth, that Christ failed? I go, exactly. Don't be so foolish of thinking that you can change people and force free will to come into a certain direction if you just love good enough. The point isn't to go ahead and change them, even though it's a desire to see them found and brought back to life. The desire is to know him more and let others know him more. There's your mission statement. And all that we do. So I will go to 1 John chapter 3. In the beginning, it starts out in chapter 3 that we are children of God. That is an amazing thing. Now, the thing about 1 John is it's a complete letter battling Gnosticism. Now, there are many branches of Gnosticism. There's two main, which I wish I could remember, but I can't right now. And he was battling one of them. primarily, but he kind of touches on all of them. And one of the things the main things of Gnosticism is that you cannot sin in a way that would affect your spiritual life at all, because your flesh and your spirit are two different things, and all evil exists in the flesh, but none in the spirit. So when God redeems your spirit, it doesn't matter what the flesh does, because one day they will separate, and God has already purified your spirit. That is dualism. And he, of course, combats that a lot. You'll see these phrases of comparisons over and over through the book of First John. It says, the one who says this versus the one who says that. One belongs to God, one doesn't. The one who does this and the one who does that. He keeps differentiating them. And you'll see the one, like it basically says that he's like really combating the idea of conduct. Like, no, if you are a follower of God, this is the way you will behave. No doubt about it. But in chapter 3, we find this peculiar story from the Old Testament. And I'll say, this is why I say, just because you live out Christianity the best a person ever could have lived it out and look like Christ, that you'll win them over, that doesn't mean so. Look at the story starting in verse 11 of 1 John 3. For this is the message you have heard from the beginning. We should love one another, unlike Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his deeds were evil. And that'd be interesting if it just stopped there. It'd be pretty straightforward. Well, duh, but it doesn't. It has an and. And his brothers were righteous. Do not be surprised then, brothers and sisters, if the world hates you. What does that mean? Why did Cain end up killing Abel? Because the righteous and the unrighteous can't dwell in unity. They hate each other. There's a hate from the unrighteous to the righteous. That will happen in your lifetime. It will happen in relationships. Not all the time. There are those I know who are married and live in the same house, and my mom's one of them. She's a Christian. My stepdad is not. He loves her to death. He is loyal and thinks the world of her. My mom's been a Christian for, I don't know, since like 2003. So it's been like 20-something years. Still hasn't caused him to come. And I think she does a fantastic job at living like Christ. No failure on her part. But then there are others where one hates the other. And Paul gives directive for that. You know, he does say stay married if the other is willing, but if they are unwilling, and if you are in a relationship like that where one hates the other and they're just like they're always against you and destroying you and ripping you down, then there's the reason for it. But the thing is that is going to happen. There will be division. Jesus talked about, I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword. That your enemies will be of your own household, 2 against 3 and 3 against 2. But the thing is then we must not be surprised if we are a believer, if the person who is an unbeliever doesn't like us. That should not shock you if that happens to you. I know that should just go without saying, but John had to write this. But he's also writing this for another purpose. He's going, you're going to find out who really is in your church as part of the church versus who's really not part of the church. There'll be those who love you, and there'll be those who don't love you. There'll be those walking in love and those who are not walking in love. And it says, we know we have passed from death to life. And you'll find that a lot too. We know, you know, we know. All this over, like he's giving these ideas of assurance that you are saved. Because we love our brothers and sisters. The one who does not love remains in death. Everyone who hates his brother or sister is a murderer, just as Cain was. Added that last part there for you. And you know that's the unrighteous, and no murderer has eternal life residing in him. See, what we have to then understand then is it's going to happen. And there's nothing we can do. All we can do is walk in assurance. All right, you ever had that question asked, do you know if you were to die today where you're going? I don't preach that way to save people. I don't really ask an unbeliever that. I like to ask believers that question. Because you get a lot of different answers. Some go, yeah, and then all of a sudden, I'm pretty sure at least. Yeah, I think so. All of a sudden they start keep moving the line. You're like, they're like, can we know? Like, can we really know? Like, yeah. First John really is very clear on what we can know. Not that only that you would make it, that we can stand boldly before the day on the day of judgment before Christ. Like, it's not even that I didn't make it, it's like, or make it, it's like, I'm not even afraid to be judged by him on that day. That's the kind of confidence that John is saying you can have as a believer. So yes, you can know. And I'll give you some things that First John highlights at the end here. I'll give you, I'm sure there's more, but I just wrote down 7 things just really kind of for my own study. Like, man, keep saying this over and over. But even this, listen to this in verse 19. It says, this is how we know that we belong to the truth and reassure our hearts before him whenever our heart condemns us, for God is greater than our heart. So how do you know? Well, if you look at the little one verse above it, little children, let us not love in word and speech, but in action and in truth. Does your life actually show love towards others? And does it, you have a desire to love others and grow in that love towards others? If not, there's your answer already. You don't have to go any further. You're definitely not a Christian. Like, that's a bold statement. Well, I'm not making a statement. That is literally right there. You go a little bit further in verse 24. And the one who keeps his commandment remains in him, and he in him. And so listen to this. And the way we know that he, as in God, remains in us. How do we know that God remains in us? It's from the Spirit he has given us. So there's that Spirit again. Well, how do I know I have the Spirit? Well, I want to ask you, are you living by the Spirit? Romans chapter 8. Not fulfilling the lust of the flesh. It's pretty simple. Just take a look at your life. What are you walking by? What's being produced? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? Or is it self-centeredness? Is it envy? Is it anger? Is it unforgiveness, bitterness? What is it? What are you walking in? Depression? Like, what are you walking in? Loathsomeness? What is it? Look at the fruit of your life. It isn't too hard, and you'll know which one you are walking by, whether it's the flesh that produces death or by spirit, which produces life. And not only life, it actually produces peace. I'm like, what kind of peace? Not only peace within, but the idea that you're at peace with God. And that makes you reassured. But are you constantly desiring to run towards God, to learn and grow in him, to know him more? Because in chapter 4, verse 13, it says, this is how we know that we remain in him and he in us. He has given us of his Spirit. They're like, well, he already said that. Yes. First John is a very odd book in the way it is written. It does this weird kind of spiraling thing. It goes to one point, then it circles back. And then it goes to another point, and it circles back. And it keeps doing this weird spiral. There's really no literary style that it matches. No one's ever been able to find it. They can't name it. They go, it is very interestingly arranged. But he keeps doing this thing, bringing things into full circle, connecting until he comes to the very end. But the whole time he is combating this idea of what others have set up as who God is and who they're trying to make him to be versus who God actually is and what that means for you and produces in your life. It should produce a certain kind of life. You say, well, what does it mean to love your brothers and sisters? I am so glad you asked that question. I thank you for holding that question to the very end here. But in chapter 5, we get the definition. It's a really good definition. I'm starting with verse 1. Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ has been born of God. And everyone who loves the Father also loves the one born of him. So again, we're back to who's that? That is your brother and sister in Christ. Like, well, that hasn't explained what love is. And this is how we know that we love God's children. When we love God and obey his command. For this is what love for God is. To keep his commands. The obedience is huge. But again, it's not a thing about legalism. It's about, I want to do the things God wants to do. Is that your life? All of a sudden you're on the computer and something like pornographic image pops up. Do you click on it or do you click away from it? You got to ask those questions. Like when you have the ability to go ahead and run towards sin versus away from sin. And at the chance that maybe you run towards it in a moment, are you sorry instantly once it's over and wish you had never done it and you have no intention of going back? I am not preaching perfection here. I am preaching a sincere heart before God that desires to follow him in his ways. Our kids, my son, do not follow mom and dad's rules perfectly. Does that mean they don't love us? Of course not. That's stupid. But we want them to, and we encourage them to, because we love them. I don't make rules because I just want to make a rule. I'm going to be a hard dad today, and I'm going to make you do this, 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 and this because I just want to, and I'm dad, and you have to listen. That's horrible. I've learned long ago I will not correct my kids when I am angry. If mine is not rooted in a godly anger in the sense of love, true love, I will not do it. Because worldly anger does not produce the righteousness of God. And if I am not producing the righteousness of God in my life or in their life, what the heck am I doing? I might as well walk away. And at least walk away, run to prayer, get on my knees and ask the Lord, how do I want them through this? Why am I not? And I repent of my own lack of love, and then get love, and then run in there and go and love them and correct them down a path that is actually revealing the heart of God. Train them up in the ways of God, in the ways of righteousness. That is what we do with them. But these commands, it says here, they're not burdensome. Here's the thing about the commands. They're not a burden. They're like, oh man, it is about a bunch of do's and don'ts. I knew it. I knew it. That's so hard. It's not. The thing is actually keeping the commands takes burdens off of you. Tell me, how has sin worked out for you in being a light burden? I had a dream this week. I told my wife, you ever one of those nights where your dreams just keep doing this? They're just constantly different dreams. Like one time you're here, and this time you're here, and they don't make you wake up and they're like, they're not even a story. It's like, here's a short story book. Here's a short story. It's not like, at one point I'm like in a restaurant eating chocolate cake with my wife, and then the next one I'm at a zoo or something. It's like, what's going on here? I didn't really have that. I'm just saying like it's weird. But at one point, I don't remember any of my dream except for one part of the dream. I woke up actually in a sweat, a little scared, actually very bothered. And it was just before I had to get up for the day. I came over to prayer, and I was like, oh my gosh, Lord, what the heck was that? I already knew what it was, but I'm like, what? I know I asked for this, but wow. And so I'll just tell you, so in the dream, and this is what I said, we need to have love for people. In the dream, I am sitting in this back row of a place. I have no clue. I don't know where I'm at. But anyways, there's this lady. Doesn't matter who she is. She's standing there. And she has given this really thin, like, container, like something had a liquid in it. I don't know what it was. I don't think she didn't know what it was. And this man gives it to her. And she looks at it, kind of swirls it around, stares at it, looks back up at him and says, will it kill me? Will it hurt me? And the guy just goes, no, I would never do that to you. And then she goes, okay. And right as she's about to drink it, at the same time, the guy turns around and just right towards the crowd and gives the biggest smile he could ever give. And you knew what it meant. Like, I totally lied to her. And she drinks the whole thing. And as soon as she drank that last drop, she drops the glass. And do this. This will bother me. I have never seen a person so scared in their life. I used to watch horror movies. I've seen the stuff on I've seen people scared in real life. I have never seen the fear. And I couldn't see what she was looking at. I knew what she was looking at. She was like, had that 1,000 yards there looking this way. And she just started screaming in the most terrifying scream and had the most scared look on her face, and it was never going to go away. She was more terrified than anything I've ever seen in my life. And even in the dream, I was insanely unsettled. I was so bothered by her fear, like, this is not good. I know what and I woke up. And I knew exactly what she saw. I knew exactly what was going on. It was just a bunch of demons coming to take her to hell. She knew she was done. It was over. And it is the most terrifying thing that ever happened to her, obviously. But the thing is, I woke up and I said, Lord, why did you show me that? Like, why do I need that? I want a heart for the lost. I want the lost to be found. I pray that every day. I pray for the lost to be found, the sick, the maimed, the weak, the broken, the distant hearted, the ones who are just downcast, the outcast, the dregs of society, the rejected, those who are in pain and suffering and can offer nothing to anybody, who feel like they've just got nothing for anybody and they feel worthless. I pray for them crowds every day. Why would you give me that? And it was as simply as he goes, I want you to have my heart. This is why I want nobody to go there. He goes, it is the worst place imaginable. To be separated from me is the worst thing imaginable, is what it would be from the words of God. Not from me as Stephen. You can be separated from me. But to be separated from God, it is no party. And when you are judged, it is eternal pain. There's nothing. It's over. You don't get you don't die one day. It doesn't stop. It is eternal. And people say, how can a just God even allow like a temporary sins to cause eternal suffering? And I would love to talk with you on that. I just don't have the time. And it is a fun topic if you want to understand it and the idea of the justice and sovereignty of God. I would, again, there's plenty on that topic. I just want to stay on right now, though, if that's okay. And this simply is this: God so loved the world that he gave his only son to save you from such things as that. But not only that, but he gave you the way to live differently. Don't buy into a knockoff Jesus. Don't go ahead and run to places that say, because man has affinity, you need me to be saved. Man just wants followers. That's what the Gnostics were. They said, we have special knowledge that only we have, and if you don't learn it from us, you ain't going to heaven. And John already says, you have no need for a teacher. He's like, well, there's teachers in... No, he's not teachers like that. Teachers that would say, we need to teach you special knowledge. He goes, no, you already have the truth. I'm not telling you these things because you don't know, but that you already know. I'm affirming what you already know. And that's what I do up here. I'm not teaching anything new, people. I have no special knowledge. You can read this thing and find out if I'm telling the truth or not. And I pray you would go home and go, I wonder if that pastor was actually pulling my leg or not. Go do it. I would love for you to do that. Check it out. Please. But be on guard against such people, for they do masquerade around as angels of light. They don't come around with a pointy tail and dark clothing and pitchfork telling you things of curses. They actually know how to fake it really well. This is why, and I'm not usually quick to say things like this, but I will say this is why I'm against things like, I'm against them, but Jehovah's Witnesses. I am against Mormonism. And yes, I am against Roman Catholicism. Because each of them possesses this idea that they have a certain body that you need to interpret the word. That is ridiculous. You don't need that. Yes, get to a church that has good biblical teaching. Find someone who can teach you. But the moment they would say, you need me and you need me to interpret this for you, is the moment you run out those doors. We believe in the word, but here's the thing: the word reveals God. I'm asking you, though, are you actually seeking God out? Are you hungering for him? Again, are you one of those who are saying, Holy Spirit, you're inside of me, and you're the one who knows the Father well? You know the deep things of God, and what I am asking you to do is pull out the very deep things of God to lay them bare before me, that I could see him and know him. And here's the thing that I want to close with: two things. One, God will not show up where he is not honored. We're like, what are you talking about? If you really want to know God and spend time with him, honor him as God. Can I be honest for just a moment, real with you for just a moment? I don't condemn it, but you'll never see me do things like this because I'll never understand it. in the sense of I can't worship God and honor him the way I would. And I got this from a story. I heard this, and I'll give you the story, and you'll see where I'm going. So there was a conference held down in Brazil, and this it was a very famous speaker who was at this conference, and it was a massive church, hundreds of thousands, and he's sitting there, and everyone's in there really excited, and they're like, yeah, it's gonna be great. But as the worship went on, the praise was going. They had like the best praise band there, and this speaker is like getting ready to speak, and he's looking around them, and he's like, the Spirit of God is not here. And as he begins to look around him, he goes, what is going on? He goes, he's looking, and there's people over there talking and joking. Others are looking at their phones, and other people are going out there to get their cups of coffee and buy stuff. Nobody's paying attention to God. But he's this guy, he goes, I'm going too deep. No, that's not it. And then all of a sudden, the music stops. And that's when he said, surely when the movement stops, when we shift gears, their attitude will change. But when the music stopped and it was silent, all then that it did is it caused him to be able to hear and people talking and the lights going on and off and everything. He goes, this is ridiculous. And so then he gets up there and he speaks that. And he says, you guys are here gathered in the name of Christ, or so you think. And they just got quiet. He goes, because you're not. He goes, God is not here because you have not honored him. You want to go out there and get your stuff, do your thing, make yourself comfortable. And none of you would have done what you have done if the president was in the room. And there was one who was higher than him. When you go to prayer, I'm not talking Sunday morning. When you go to prayer, when you get in the Word, do you not understand that you are inviting God into your day, and you should be like in that moment, like, I want to get into your presence. Then honor him. Honor him as he is, so that you can know him as he is. He's not going to come to somebody who goes, I'm God, meet me where I'm at, and you just kind of do what you want. And none of us would put up with that on a table, someone sitting across from us. How many of us would love that? You're sitting there telling somebody like all about yourself. You're on let's imagine this, ladies, you're on your first date. And the guy is just handsome as ever. He sits down and you start talking to him. And like a minute in, he takes out his phone. And you're like, oh, is that important? Oh, no, you can keep going. I got this streak going and I want to keep it going. Oh, okay. And you wait and you're like, oh, no, keep going. And all of a sudden he puts it away. And all of a sudden he goes and he sees one of his buddies over there. And you're talking. You're like, oh, no. Hey, how you doing? And he gets up and walks away from the table. Then he comes back and says, sorry, that was my buddy. And oh man, he's awesome. You got to get to know him one day. And you're kind of getting frustrated, aren't you? You're like, he is not paying attention to me at all. And then you keep talking and he just goes, you know what? And he interrupts you. I think I'm going to go ahead and check on our food. I got to go to the bathroom too, so I'm going to go do that at the same time. Whatever you were talking about, I really wasn't paying attention because I'm getting a lot going on in my mind right now. How many of you would put up with that? Any takers? How many would say this man is a forever material kind of man? He has no self-control. He has no ambition to pursue me. He does not prioritize me. Even though he knew this block of time was going to be for us, he doesn't seem to care. He's blocked in everything. Nobody's doing that. But yet when we go to prayer, when we get in the Word, we let everything else come in with it, and we expect God to show up. How stupid is that? The enemy's got you fooled. And so the last thing I want to give you is just, I'm sorry, I didn't give you, sorry, 3 more things. I said I would. I want to be a man of my word. And they're really fast. When you go into prayer, can you just sit in silence for a moment and just contemplate the amazing thing of how amazing your God is? It's in your head. Your whole wonderful life. Your love is unending. Wow. And you start meditating on this. Quietly. Imagine I'll tell you, it changes the way you pray, and it changes the way that you feel. He shows up. So, out of 1 John, I want to answer your question for you. The assurances of salvation. How can you know that you are walking with God? Number 1, You walk in the light. These are all found in the book. Number 2, you confess your sin. Number 3, you keep his command. Number 4, you love the brothers and sisters. Number 5, you affirm sound doctrine. Number 6, you pursue holiness. And number 7, you have the Spirit of God. Go through that checklist. You will have those. Is that what I do? Is that what I walk by? So you find. But don't be just fine of having that. You have that, then you have something greater to run after. Don't be like the brothers who lived in the presence of the Father, but never really. Don't get swayed by teachings that and endless debate about things that will lead you down the paths of much knowledge, but never really arrive at knowing him. Forsake such pursuits for the one pursuit. Can we keep the main thing the main thing? That's the goal. Today, we're gonna praise, we're gonna worship at the end here, and we're closing out. And so, kind of reformatted it for this. So, just to give you a heads up, there are 2 songs. I mean, combined, they're like 10 minutes. And there will be some ambience in the background. If you want to respond, we always encourage that. I believe carving out time to respond and listen for God is great. And maybe what I preached on, you're like dealing with something else. Cool. Don't ignore that. Take that before God. I just preached on one thing, but there's many lives in this room. But I pray that whatever you're going through, that you would put it under that umbrella of saying, God, I'm going through this. Can you show yourself in this situation? Not that I may have a solution, but that in the solution I may know you. Because the greatest end is knowing God. Make that your heart. Amen. So, Father, we thank you for your work, believe in it, and what it is going to do in our lives from here on out, that as it continues to resonate and live in our hearts, that it would go ahead and produce something great in each person. I pray, Father, that each person would not be content to live on the surface, but to dive deep into knowing by being led by your Spirit, having those things laid bare, having the desire as Moses to behold your glory to a greater degree, to the point where we say, yes, I even feel like I have to veil my face before the unbelievers, because if when they see me, they think I'm a fruitcake and they can't even stand it. I pray, Father, that we would have that kind of knowing, that kind of closeness with you, that it wouldn't just be a knowledge had, an intellect had, but an experience, because the sons had intellect, but they lacked the experiential knowledge of you. So, Father, please guide us in that place as we honor this place. Please, that